Well, I am thrilled because I have the lymph goddess to talk to you right now. And this is Desiree De Spong, and she is in New Zealand right now. And she has spearheaded equipment and medical technology to help people with their lymphatic system. That's sort of the culmination of many, many years of being obsessed with the lymphatic system. She's the director of Medela Health Limited, and we're going to talk about her journey. But of course, most importantly, how she can help you with her information, what she has observed through research, and the Flowpresso machine. So hello, Kelly Kennedy talked a little bit about it. We're now talking to the incredible Desiree. Hello, hello, hello.
Thank you for having me, and hello from New Zealand. So my background is very broad. I've been in the private sector and commercial side of things, and then I went into health back in '99. So I've got a background from training in Eastern philosophies and then through into lymphatics probably about 15 years ago, maybe 18 years ago now, I lose all track of time. And so, over the years, I've been teaching here in New Zealand and in the United States, and trying to bring forward a different approach to how we can look at lymphatics. So that's a little bit of my background. Some of the exciting things for me is obviously research. I like to be able to validate what we do and why we do it. And probably the most exciting research we've seen in the last probably 3-4 years has actually been specifically around lymphatics. So the lymphatics of the brain. So you can imagine teaching 14 years ago and trying to explain to people how you drain the brain, we would say it. And because we would see a lot of difference in the sinus drainage. We would see like someone on chemotherapy, they would have, we called it chemo brain in New Zealand, and they would feel clearer. And so you knew something was happening. And I mean, let's face it, the human body is phenomenal. Like, why would it stop at this point where the cervical nodes are? And these are the nodes that sit and drain the face. And there's a couple through here. So we knew there had to be more to the system. So this is where we're finding science is finally catching up. And so this is where the exciting thing is for us, that have kind of worked in the field for a while from an application clinical point of view. So, trying to do the manual drainage, all those sorts of things, we're seeing these results. So that's been exciting for us. More recently, they've realized through a zebrafish that if they take away lymphatic vessels to actually get a recovery to the heart, it doesn't happen. They don't heal as well. So they think that the lymphatics plays a massive role in healing and reducing scarring when it comes to the heart. And being that those two are interconnected, they're part of the same circulatory system, it kind of makes sense that they're going to be able to support each other. So we are seeing a lot. Breast health. There was an amazing study done in France on wearing a bra. It was quite a long study, and they found even the lightest pressure of a bra reduced lymphatic flow. Ironically, if you're younger, not so much my age, but younger, if you don't wear a bra, they actually proved that it didn't make the breast drop. It actually tightened because you used your pec muscles more. So that kind of goes against our training of, wear a bra but as you get older, maybe trying to do that is a little bit different. So there is lots of research validating what we know. I think the exciting thing for me, though, was as hard as COVID's been for us all, it's really exposed us to immunity and the lymphatic system. And, as you've seen, Kelly Kennedy has really made a breakthrough in getting that word out to people on how the lymphatic system plays a vital role. Those two are the same. They aren't separated. And how important we are as individuals to start working on it. So that's sort of, my passion is getting that information out there that, we can do stuff at home. We don't have to always seek help. And coming from an Eastern philosophy, everything is integrated. You don't just look at one system to the other. So you have to consider that in health.
In health, absolutely. And hopefully in everything. So tell me about what we can do at home, and then we'll talk about Flowpresso.
Okay, so some of the things I've found that have been, vital for lymphatic health is probably the first one and the easiest one, yet the hardest one for people to understand, is breathing. So we all breathe, and And obviously, because it's the thing that keeps us alive, but most people don't breathe well. And it's often the out breath, not the in breath. And so from a diaphragmatic point of view, if you're not doing deep breathing, you're not moving the lymph, especially from below the ribs up. And that's, like about, sort of 60% of the body, trying to draw fluid up through the chest. It comes up through this piping system called the thoracic duct, and it meets into the left subclavian, so up in this area. And so, for us to be able to propel fluid, it's going against the process of life where you're standing up, and of course gravity pushes everything down. So breath is a big part, and most people are sitting in front of a computer nowadays. They light breathe, shallow breathe, and so we're seeing this as probably one of the biggest ones. Ironically, breathing also instigates the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's our rest, repair, digest. And so even from that point of view, we know that the parasympathetic system stimulates lymphatic drainage. And this is one of the reasons we lie, at nighttime, if we're swelling, we actually reduce our swelling because we're engaging that response through the rest and repair process. So that's probably one of the...
Hold on for just a second. I really want you to repeat what you just said. When you get in the relaxation state of rest and digest, which is when you're in the parasympathetic state, versus the sympathetic state, which is, I always remember it, that please have sympathy for me because I'm stressed. So, and I could never keep them straight in the beginning. So the parasympathetic system activates or stimulates the lymphatic system. Is that what you just said?
Correct.
Okay.
But I'm waiting to see, I'm waiting to see if science might prove us differently where, and this is really putting it out there, that maybe it's the lymphatics that stimulate the parasympathetic.
Ooh, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
I really do think that happens. I've got a colleague, Dr. Jeff Drobot, he's down in Arizona, and, him and I have known each other for years, and he is always saying, I think it is, but I can't get the science to prove it yet. But in our field as a clinician, watching what happens to the person when you start stimulating their lymph, all of a sudden there's this down regulation. It's like, oh. And it's a little bit like massage, but it's slightly different. There's a completely different response. And then all of a sudden they just start letting go and the fluid starts to move and everything starts to happen. So for me, breathing is the cheapest, easiest way we can start to stimulate that. And that's something we can do at home. And even if you just focus on in for 4, hold, out for 4, with focus on your out breath more than on your in breath, you will naturally breathe in. It's an automatic response. And what you find when you focus more on your out breath, you actually take a deeper response on the in breath. It's like you can open up more. And breathing out is about letting go. So lymphatics, if we look at the emotion, is about letting go. So again, they intercorrelate there. So those are kind of the things that's so important for us from a lymphatic point of view, is if we can get you relaxed and breathing deeply. And honestly, I would have to say 95% of my clients that I've seen in practice over these years, no one was breathing correctly. It was one of the biggest issues I definitely saw in practice. One of the other things is movement. The lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, so it's not like the heart. It doesn't get to have something to push it around. There's 3 mechanisms, 1 being breath, 2 being movement. So that's whether it's walking, running, lymphasizing, rebounding is another great one. But the third one is what we call the lymphangions, which is a muscle that helps to actually create the squeezing technique of lymphatics, which is actually that one stimulated by the parasympathetic.
Okay,
so
say that word again, because I've never heard that word before.
The lymphangion, so that's the muscle that surrounds the lymphatic vessel. So it's kind of like squeezing a towel. When you wring a towel out, it kind of does this technique to help that muscle, so that not the muscle, but the lymphatic capillary to move and actually bring the fluid up. It's kind of like a bit like a rotation. And so that one is stimulated by the parasympathetic. So when you're lying down at night and you wake up and, oh, my ankles are so much littler than they were when I went to bed, that one's the one that's being engaged to try and keep that momentum of the fluid moving.
And what's lymphasize? Is that like exercises for lymph?
So yeah, the lymphasizer is like a rebounder. So it's
Okay.
but it's specifically designed. It's got the amount of coils that are actually in the mat is very specific. So yeah, it's about trying to get the rebounding. So a rebounder, compared to what we call a lymphasizer, is a rebound is just exercise. It's sort of like the mini trampoline, but a lymphasizer has resistance in the mat to create the movement to move up the fluid in the body. So there's very much a difference between those two.
So I'll have to Google lymphasizer. Am I saying it right?
Yeah. Lymphciser.
Okay. All right, cool.
It may be called rebounders in the United States, but there is very much a difference between them.
What do you think about these vibration platforms?
They are good, the lighter ones. The ones that are really rattling your bones and your teeth, yeah. I'm not convinced that they're a good option, mainly because of the health of someone. It can be a bit too much. There is such a thing as detoxing too much in my field, especially if the elimination of the body isn't working well, so the bowel and the kidney, and those are all interconnected again to our lymphatics. So that can be a bit too much. So if you can go at a light pace, like those little ones that you can get to just stand on, they're fantastic. There's a thing called the chi machine, and you can actually lie down and put your feet in it. And again, it's creating a vibration up the body. So, or get on a trampoline with your kids and just do a little bit of bouncing. Don't jump above the mat, though. The key is to stay connected to the mat, whatever rebounder lymphasizer you use. So even if you stay on your toes, it's to keep that connection. You never jump. So that's the difference with lymphatics as opposed to jumping on a trampoline for exercise.
Okay, you're the only person who said that, assuming, everybody else has been talking about it, but I think everyone is assuming that they knew that. So I'm really glad you broke that down. So you could even just sit your butt down on a rebounder and just go bouncy, 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 and get some results.
You will, because you'll be getting it from the abdominal area up through the chest. So you will still be getting a result. The key is to ensure that you're not, some of the rebounders put too much pressure on people's backs, but you can get them with handles now so you can hold on. So it's just a pulsing as opposed to a jumping and trampolining. Yeah.
Jumping is better than, bouncing. Okay. So you just want to do a little bit of resistance, stay connected to the surface of the rebounder, and take it from there. Okay, that's very good clarification. Okay, so we have the, what else can we do at home, or what else can we do that's easy or, not overly expensive that
we have obviously drinking our water and good pure water. I mean, the problem though I'm seeing, and I know it's a big problem in the States because I've seen it when I've been over there teaching, is the hydration aspect of water. So we have, our fluid that we bathe in, our cells bathe in, and then we have the intracellular fluid. And we're often seeing that people are dehydrated even though they feel like they're a big bowl of fluid. They actually feel very fluidy. And I think that comes more down to the electrolytes. So it's looking at a high quality electrolyte as well for a little while, because if we don't get the sodium potassium ratio correct, then what happens is you will continue to fill up with fluid because your body's thinking it's dehydrated, but it's actually an internal system issue as opposed to you're not drinking enough water. So part of our elimination work that we do, in other words, our support, we're always looking at the health of the kidney, and we're always looking at the health of the gut, because the gut is 80% of your immune system. So can you poop? Can you pee? Now, in most cases, with the kidneys, it's not seen as an issue until it's more severe. So that's why and yet it regulates our fluid balance. So for us, we're going, okay, electrolytes. Ironically, something as simple as, and you're going into winter, this is a perfect time, is you have your Wheaties, I think you call them, like you heat them up in a microwave. They're like with either rice or wheat inside them, and they're a bag that you put on as a heat pack.
Oh, yeah. I've never called them a Wheatie, but they're like the heat pack that you put in the microwave that has sometimes has flaxseed in it or rice. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So anything like that you can put on your kidneys, because in Eastern philosophy, You want to get warmth into your kidneys. It's about driving heat in to get blood flow through the kidneys, to help the kidneys actually get, more nutrients, more blood flow, so then it will release fluid more efficiently. So we've found that to be incredibly helpful from a lymphatic point of view as well. And the great thing is even warmth on the abdomen, so the lower or on the small intestine is another thing. Driving heat in is about warming the core body temp up, because once the body's warm, it will move. Fluid will move. So the idea is, again, that. So that's another one. So when we're drinking water, you can drink lots and lots of water, but if you're not replacing it with any electrolytes or healthy salts, a Himalayan salt or something like that, then you can get an imbalance.
Are you familiar with this brand?
No, I don't know.
Do you know who Carolyn Ladowski is? She's in Australia. She does DNA work.
No, I haven't come across Carol yet.
She's lovely. We'll have to connect you to her. Well, this has vitamin C, sodium. It's a quarter teaspoon from Redmond's Real Salt, and potassium from 922 milligrams potassium bicarbonate. So this is literally what you're just talking about. There's also a nice brand here in the United States called, I think it's called Ultimate, that I think that I've just started drinking actually after watching the summit. I'm like, oh, I gotta fix my electrolytes. So I've started doing that, and I've noticed such a big difference already. In one day, I noticed this huge difference. Thank you, everybody, for reminding me.
It is simple, but it's actually very powerful. I have a couple of, we call them physios here, but you call them PTs, and gave them the advice to just pass it on. And they said I make them look really good because they just get them to put them on electrolytes, and they start having this amazing response because, we are, a saline solution, and our cells are bathing in that. So we want to keep that. And, stress is such a big thing for draining a lot of, especially magnesium, out of the body. And that's the kind of one that sits over above us, sodium, potassium. So we want to be able to really help the body replace those electrolytes if we're sweating, if we're, so all those things are so valuable from a lymphatic point of view. Probably, you've already talked about, Kelly gave you a bit of demo on dry skin brushing and manual drainage. So those are very important. You can do those at home. So they're really valuable. So if you haven't seen the one with Kelly Kennedy, definitely connect to that one. What you put on your skin, it's so vital. So the minute it goes, if you understand where the lymphatics sit, you've kind of got your epidermis, your skin layer, and then straight underneath you've got your lymphatic vessels. So it's the first port of call that's going to be dealing with whatever you put on your skin. They did a number of years ago, it's about 10, probably 12 years ago, they did a study in the journal Toxicology, and they actually tested tissue that they took from breast cancer patients, and they found there was 1 million times more parabens in that tissue than what there should have been. So a bulk of it was actually around the armpit, believe it or not, and most sentinel node biopsies, which is where they actually are testing the lymph nodes the closest to the origin of the cancer, are actually located in this sort of area. So again, it's like, really think about what you're putting on your skin, because it is like a food to your skin as well. Your skin's going to absorb it. And yes, one little bit is fine. But you're putting on that same product every day of every week, of every month, of every year, it's going to accumulate. And the body then is under strain again to try and remove any toxins that are in that product. So that's one of the things we do, sort of say, try and go as clean as you can. It makes a big difference. I haven't used traditional deodorant for, 14, 15 years. I wear a wire bra probably once a year because all these things have an effect on how the lymph flows. Tight clothing has an effect on how lymph flows, So we know with socks at the end of the day, they cause a tourniquet if you're getting swelling issues. You've got to really think about what you're impeding, what are you stopping moving? And of course, there's stress and emotion. So, we know, they've actually realized they did some studies in mice, and they found that chronic stress actually remodels the lymphatic vasculature. So basically how the lymph vessels work. So that's massive. We know stress is a big thing. We've finally got science catching up with us, which is great. That explains why it's so. 80% of chronic conditions, they say there's a correlation to stress. And again, that's the parasympathetic nervous system not regulating. So we come back to that central nervous system where we can breathe and we can encourage that to then re-engage, which helps our lymphatics. From an emotional point of view, because I always go there, I always think it's, we are what we eat, but we also are what we think. So if we're a warrior, we're going to worry a lot. We're going to create stress in our lives. This is going to impede lymphatics. And if you're into like Louise Hay, she's always going on, what are you holding on to when it comes to lymphatics? Lymphatics is a big part of us letting go of how we've defined ourselves, our anxieties, and it's supposed to bring us back to a natural balance. So, for me, lymphatics, we often get people quite emotional. It's like, they're just letting go of a cellular memory, and that's all it is. It's just no different to going to the toilet and getting rid of the body waste. Sometimes we just have to emotionally let go of something that's happened in our lives without trying to connect to it and create a story behind it. It's just that let go. And so if we can address how we're feeling, and in New Zealand, we talk about, coming from the wairua, so that's the heart of us, who we are, who we've come into this world to be, but we let society define us or our upbringing, all that thing. We try and come back to that. We try and come back to what's important to us. What values do we have? Because the heart and lymphatics are connected. So again, if we're connected to the heart of who we are, so that's the spirit of us, and the heart's happy, it's circulating, it's pumping, it's fine, then the lymphatics are also circulating, pumping, and fine. So that's just another.
What is that you're talking about, always connecting to the what? Did you say to the heart, or do you have another word for it?
No, it's called the wairua in New Zealand. It's a Māori reference of bringing two aspects of who we are. So that's the person that we've come in and the soul that we were to be. And it's talking about how they come together, and it sits within the heart of who we are. So when we talk about connecting to wairua, we talk about just being us. Like, who are we? What we've been often, especially at the moment, we're being, dealing with a lot of issues environmentally in the world right now that are kind of saying we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to be this, we have to, and it's actually coming back to, well, who do I want to be? What do I want to stand for? Where are my thoughts, rather than this is how I grow up to be? It's more about, where do I really resonate? And so lymphatics is all about letting go of that past, letting go of those traumas, letting go of those beliefs. And they know now through science that, every cell has a memory. So if we understand that, then we're not so caught up in the, oh, this is weird, no, this is woo-woo. No, science is actually showing us this is real now. We have to own our thoughts. We have to own the fact that we will have to let go of stuff, and it's okay. And let's come back to our truth. Like, that's where I see COVID was the only shining light I saw out of all this was, well, not only, but in the sense of one of the biggest profound chances you had with COVID, especially here in New Zealand, because we went in complete lockdown. We went into 5-6 weeks of, you didn't go anywhere. You weren't allowed out of the house except for vital things like food and medical attention if it was major. So you had to really recenter. You had to decide, what in my life's been working, what hasn't? Am I happy or am I not? Is this relationship working? And all those things happened. So it was massive for us here in New Zealand. We didn't get that much freedom. So everyone in New Zealand had to really rethink where their values were. And that's part of coming back to the wairua. Who am I? Yeah. And then when you are who you are, if you read like Annette Noontool, she's quite interesting. She says, that lymphatics is about gaining harmony, and harmony only comes from learning your anxieties and bringing balance back into the physical and the spiritual. So it's about bringing balance, and she thinks that's the lymphatic system is all about trying to bring you back to balance.
And what is her name again?
Annette Noontool. So Noontill, and she's written a book a lot about the body as the barometer of the soul. And so she talks a lot about that sort of stuff and how it's all interconnected. And you look at biological medicine, the work that Christine Schaffner is doing in the world, it's phenomenal because we're finally getting the understanding why we need to look at ourselves as a whole. We can't separate one off to the other. It's all integrated. And if you're not well, every aspect of this has to happen. My sister went through stage 4 cancer 3 years ago. she's down a lot further down in New Zealand. And so I was flying back and getting her up, and we walked the path with her on every aspect, because I knew the only way she'd survive, she sort of started in bowel, went to liver, and it perforated. So we didn't even know it had gone there before we had any understanding it was an issue. And but now, she's 3 years through. And she's gone from a high exec to, a girl that does yoga all the time, that lives her love. She's been journaling. She's done all the work that needed to be done emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And, she has the most healthy mucosa they can't believe when they last did her colonoscopy. There's all these things have happened. So she's, the epitome of when you take health and you look at it from every aspect, you have hope to be able to then come out of that disease to be something that's, healthy and well, because you're living your truth now.
It's beautiful, and that's what meditation also does for you. Even if you're not sure if it's working, if you're becoming more content, a happier person, a nicer person, in some cases, that is an example of it working. And remember, you don't have to get it perfect. That's why they call it a practice. And these are health practices as well. One thing that you were talking about, this, the body letting go and you not necessarily having to attach to a story. I went and did this Ayurvedic treatment, and the name is escaping me, but you lie down and they put the oil on your forehead. It's like, I can't remember what it's called. It's a very specific name. Forgive me. But I went, and it's like 10 days, 12 days in a row, every day. I was driving an hour to do it. And, I had to take vacation off of work to do it. And I was like, oh, okay. And you get naked on the table, and like, it's just like a very, very Ayurvedic, authentic situation. And I was told, like in about a week, you might just like cry. You might just have this major emotional breakthrough. I was like, yeah. Sure enough, there it was. I get on the table and I just like burst into tears. And I'm like, what is going on? And I've done so much work on myself. And it was just like, there was no stopping it. And I had no story around it. It just was there. And what's also happened to me just quickly is that I have had surgery in the past, and a friend of mine's mother told me, because I was fairly a young woman at the time, and she said, it was a, teeny bopper, and she said, listen, in about 10 days, your body might have an emotional reaction, and just, you might, burst into tears or something. I was like, okay, thanks, yeah, bye. And so life went on. This was like 6 weeks before the surgery. I had the surgery. Sure enough, I'm bursting into tears this one day after the surgery. And I was like, what is wrong with me? I have no reason to be crying right now. I'm fine, And like later on that day, I remembered what Sarah had told me. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's 10 days after. I was just like, boom. She had just observed it in I don't know how she scientifically or unscientifically came upon it, but she had observed it enough to where she really believed it. And I don't think it was psychosomatic. So you don't have to buy in necessarily. The body has its own wisdom. And it was
and I think we tend to want to analyze everything,
Yeah.
We're even worse. We're like, well, what did that happen? Like, do I think I need to analyze it? Is that a trauma? Is that like, and you're like, oh, it's, I think society's created quite a stress around that, in the sense of, well, why can't I just cry? I mean, you look at children, the most beautiful epitome of emotion. 1 minute they're having a tantrum, the next minute they're laughing, the next minute they're crying, because they're just living their emotions as they are at that exact moment. They're not, well, what's wrong with me? They just think it's normal. So, I think there's an element of, we hang on to a lot. We hold on because we think we need to, or we need to be strong. I mean, women, we're the kind of the backbone often, and we're having to hold on, or we don't keep in control. And it's not about controlling things. It's about holding the control so you don't fall apart. Yeah. But what happens is that all internalizes, and then you do fall apart. In a more physical way. So emotion is I don't like to attach too much story in around emotion. I'm like, oh yeah, come on, let those tears go, let it out, come on, this is great, awesome, and that's where I found just getting permission to be able to do that. So, having a good cry, it's just part of life. We've got to, again, if you needed to cry to survive, like you need to go to the toilet to survive, because if you don't poop out, you will eventually die type scenario. we would do it naturally. We wouldn't even think about it. So I'm big into the whole, allowing your emotions to come to the surface, because we spend so much time bottling them down. And, I've trained with some of the elders here in New Zealand, and they just said all it's doing, and that's what a lot of the mental health stuff is about, is the anger that you experience in a situation, you compress down, and then you put over the sadness or the grief or the shame, push it down, and then you may have another anger, and you just keep pushing it down and down. And what happens is then the body will either get very sick, or mentally, because thinking of the gut as your second brain, you've kind of pushed it down and you've had a gutful, then it will actually affect your mental state of mind. So you can, all these different philosophies of looking at you as a whole is so empowering, because you start to engage more in you rather than the diet's going to help, or if I do that exercise, it's going to help. If I go to all those therapists, it's going to help. Well, the one person that can actually help you the most is you, and self-care is the priority.
Speaking of which, tell me about the Flowpresso.
That was 15 years of challenging lymphology.
Is that on the table there?
Yeah, so that's it behind us. So so for me, I've never walked the path of tradition. I've always looked at everything. And about 2-3 years ago, I had a really large practice, and decided to step aside from that. It was a lot of work with 15 practitioners. So we decided to, close the company down and spend some time in research. And, I've had a number of colleagues, Kelly being one, really pushing me to look outside the square. So very long story short, looked around the world, saw what was going on with compression, saw what was going on with heat, because heat from an Eastern is absolutely vital for the body to recover. I mean, in cancer alone, normally they're what we call a degree Celsius here. I think it's like 3 degrees Fahrenheit in the US, lower than the standard body temp. So they will actually, their body temperature is lower. And so 1 degree Celsius or 3 degrees Fahrenheit will actually reduce the body's healing system significantly. So, not to mention metabolism and all that. So that's why this, them putting in saunas and giving them chemo and all these things are happening now, because if we can get them up into a temperature, so raise the body so it goes into a temperature, you will actually kill off viruses and bacteria. So that's why heat becomes so paramount. But to bring those two together is kind of a no-no in lymphology, especially with lymphedema and issues like that. You don't want the vasodilation, so the vascular system dilating. But when I found through my research and my studies that you could do it, and you actually got an amazing outcome for it, because you could actually get more movement in the lymph. So the lymph is kind of the sewage system. It's picking it up, it's draining it away. Then, of course, parasympathetic. It was the key for me. I'd gone through my own health journey. I was under massive stress. It took me 2 years to get my parasympathetic back. I had a resting heart rate of 100. And I had to learn firsthand how to do this on my own. So, we all learn in our ways to find new, ideas. So to the drawing board we went, and long story short, we launched this back in February. So it's a combination of compression, heat, far infrared heat. So it's the driving, deep, penetrating heat as opposed to a surface. And then we've put in our own unique proprietary, it's a bit like PEMF technology. So now we've been in research. I got a big research project going on with our local area, New Zealand Police. We've been working with them for 3 months. Our pilot trial was significant in its reduction of fatigue and improving sleep. So that's where I'm excited to sort of see if science can catch up with me about, is lymphatic stimulating the parasympathetic, or are we stimulating parasympathetic to get the lymphatics going? So that's where I'm now seeking help. We have research student underway. We've won grants here in New Zealand. It's all very exciting. I just did some QEEG testing earlier end of last year.
What is that?
QEEG is brain mapping. So it's seeing if you go into theta or beta and all the rest, because we're seeing people have these experiences, or this the sense of calm they haven't felt for years. And So I wanted to see if the brain was being affected as well. So we're going into a study in February in that to actually get more data on that. So yeah, so there's been lots of things happening with it. I started this whole project thinking we would be another lymphatic compression unit, but it's basically created this other whole option of one of the greatest things we're seeing is that bringing someone back to themselves, like bringing them back a moment, 40 minutes of their life, where they just get to be present in their own body, in their own moment, in their own time. And then you've got all these health benefits going on in the background. So we're seeing the shift between sympathetic and parasympathetic in one session through heart rate variability.
Wow, that's so cool. Can you move your camera a little bit so we can see the machine itself? And how many are in the United States?
I think we have somewhere around about 55 to 60 now. We've just gone into Canada. So let me just come around here. I'll turn it on. So we've kind of, see if I can get this to work, my camera. So we sort of have, oh, here we go. So we've sort of got a system where you are able to go in and, so this is all our compression options here. We have heat options on this side. Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera to show you.
Yep, it's working. It's working.
And then you're in these suit pieces. So we kind of wrap you up. It's like, if you can imagine, it's like getting multiple amount of hugs. We're using a similar concept to deep pressure therapy. Deep pressure is used for autistic kids and that. And, you know, in a time like now, you know, a hug goes a long way. I mean, a lot of people don't get touch. And the greatest thing that we didn't realize through this COVID thing, and I could keep working here in New Zealand, was because you were fully clothed. And we were able to wear our PPE. We basically wrap you, put you in some beautiful music, put an eye cover on your eyes if you don't get claustrophobic, and then we just leave you to it. And you go off and I mean, you can imagine the type of people with police, you know, these are big burly guys, some of them are armed defenders squad, they're coming in and, you know, this isn't my kind of thing, to coming out of it going, wow, okay, wow, when's my next one? You know, so we're sort of, and just the results and the sleep and stress has been phenomenal. You know, they're able to step aside and look at their situation from a completely different response. And, you know, I have businessmen coming in going, I've got a sense of peace I haven't had for years. And that's incredible.
Huge. This is huge. This is what people are doing recreational drugs for.
Exactly.
And what they're, you know, seeking in addictions ultimately. I mean, I've way oversimplified that. Don't think I'm an idiot. But I mean, you know, that whole red wine mommy culture right now taking the edge off. Think about what it could be like if we could all have some Flowpresso and feel better and chemically realign as well. I mean, that's exciting. I want to get those out there in every household.
Well, Kelly Kennedy is definitely one of our distributors. So she is obviously notmeds.com. So, you know, you can reach out to her. But I think, you know, to be honest, taking all the technicality away, if I can get in this time right now, and the stress that we're all under, the unknowns, and you've got a lot going on in the United States. We see it here in New Zealand, and we all feel for you over there right now with what you're dealing, both from a government point of view and also COVID. But, you know, if I can help someone sleep again, if I can help someone reduce their stress where they can observe it from the outside in rather than being in it, and if I can raise your levels of fatigue to feeling like you want to be back in life, that creates a ripple where not only will your lymphatics start to move, your immune system will boost, but also things like you want to get back into doing things that really take care of you. You've got this inspired, like, I don't want to be like that anymore. I mean, we have some people sending us videos where after that session, I went out and I got organic food and I'm starting to eat well. And I even saw it in the police. I'm now drinking green tea and I'm not drinking coffee so much. And you know, that to me is the person re-engaging with themselves to want to be well. And I think that if that's what this does, it can be the greatest gift, I think, for me. I'm so humbled by the outcomes of it. It's just, it was not, as I said, what the initial development of it was, but you know, I'll never forget Kelly sending me the first video after I bought one in. We bought in the prototype and I was leaving Los Angeles and I was in the middle of customs and she sends me this video of a person that had Lyme's and she said, I feel the best I've felt for 27 years. And I literally started crying in the middle of it. customs. All these people must have thought I was crazy, but it's humbling to think that you could have that much of an impact. But if I can bring you back to you, so you can take care of you, it's giving you that awareness again, what that even looked like. And that's the most profound thing. But we're, building research and around that is challenging because, it's quite subjective.
It is quite subjective. It's quite esoteric, but also super, super real. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being the goddess of lymph, as Kelly calls you that. And the website you were just talking about for Kelly Kennedy is nomeds.com. And do you have information on your website about the lymphatic system?
We haven't at this point. Most of my stuff has been done through training. So Kelly and I are actually going to work on that right now so that we can provide a little bit more, but maybe we can provide something as a handout, like can do a review on all that, and so someone can actually grab that information and I can connect that with you and put that out there for everyone so they can have that confirmation and remind what they can do to take care of themselves with the lymphatics.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate who you are in the world and all of your beautiful work. Carry on. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. And farewell from New Zealand.